Okay, so it looks like we're finally live. Apparently what I had to do was, anyway, not that you guys care, but I'm loading this, so we'll see what happens. But what I apparently had to do was go ahead and create just a new feed and go live right now. So the old feed's jinxed, I guess, so not a big deal. Sorry it got started late, and I know none of you are going to be able to find it unless you're on my Google Plus account, which I don't think is true. So this will be uploaded, and you guys will be able to see it a little bit later. Let me try to figure out why the screen's black. Hello? So let me do some testing right here, trying to figure out why. So I can see myself, but I'm looking at a live feed, and apparently it's black and I can't see anything. See whether the sound works yet. This isn't working. I'm gonna have to do a cam video probably. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so it looks like I'm up on the screen right now, and it's true. Is what it is, so we'll leave it be. So sorry for wasting the first few minutes. We'll figure out how many there were there, and I'll let you know when I upload it. Okay, so first up we've got on the screen is our problem. So we had a student ask 3 questions on the old YouTube link, and they wanted to know how to do problems D and E on the specialization and exchange homework related to the 2 countries of Nasamera and Economania. We're going to call this country N and E to make it simple. And these countries can produce 2 things. These countries are producing either computers or they're producing coconuts, right? And they produce one or the other day. And the way to view this really is like the PPF that we've done in the past. So let me angle this a little bit lower. But the way to think about this is we've got country N, and they can produce computers or coconuts. And for country N, we say they can do 9 computers or 3 coconuts. I'm doing a great job drawing straight lines. For country E, and let's just label this curve N. For country E, they can do either 2 computers or 1 coconut. So the problem came for the student in getting to the relative prices, but to get there, we really need to discuss how we got to any prices at all. So one of the things that makes these problems a little bit difficult when I've done them in the past with students and officers is that the problem sets, you guys just aren't used to trading things in a barter type relationship where you say, I'll give you this for this. And so it makes prices difficult because you're so used to thinking in terms of I buy things with money as opposed to I buy things with things. So let's start with the easy one. For country E, we can set up a series of trading relationships for this country. And we can say, look, for country 1 coconut costs, this being operative, costs 2 computers. Okay? So the idea is if you're going to sell a coconut, you need to be paid at least 2 computers. The other side of the coin, though, is if you want 1 computer, then the cost of 1 computer is going to have to be half of a coconut. And hopefully that's a little bit self-evident, and you've watched the other video where I show how to actually solve these problems. But the reality is if we think about 1 coconut is 2 computers, then 1 computer should be half of whatever this is, so half of a coconut. And they're also the reciprocal. What that means is if you have 2 over 1 here, then the opposite solution is 1 over 2, right? And reciprocal is just flipping the numerator and denominator. For country N, we start with this relationship that 3 coconuts costs 9 computers. This simplifies to 1 coconut. For every 1 coconut, it's going to cost how many computers? 3. And if we take the reciprocal of that, then we get that one computer costs a third of a coconut. These are some expensive coconuts, by the way. So the relevant prices we're concerned with are right here and here, here and here. So the way the problem's framed in D, it says the lowest price that the country specializing in coconuts will accept for them is how much? So first off, we need to figure out what country is going to produce what. So the idea is we're looking for who has the lowest opportunity cost to produce coconuts, right? We want to know which country is going to make coconuts. So country E says that to buy a coconut, the opportunity cost or what you give up is 2 computers. For country N, buying a coconut, what you give up is 3 computers. Obviously, country E gives up less to make coconuts. So country E makes coconuts. So let's just write that here. Country E makes or specializes in coconuts. If that's the case, then country E says, look, 1 coconut costs us 2 computers. If you can give me more than 2 computers for a coconut, I'm happy, right? Because if I grow a coconut, it's going to take me 2 computers to make it. So I don't want to pay, well, let's think about it this way. I don't want to pay, I want to pay less for my coconuts. So maybe, let's see. It's easy to get confused. Let's make sure I'm not getting confused. So the way to think about this is that the country, that they say, look, I can produce it for 2 computers. If you give me more than 2 computers, are they happier to have more for 1 coconut? Definitely. Do they want to take less than 1 coconut in payment for 2 less than 2 computers for 1 coconut? No, because they want more, right? More is better. So country E says, if I sell you a coconut and you can give me better than I can do on my own, so more than 2, then I'm happy. So the lowest price for coconuts would be based upon what country E can do on their own, which is 2 coconuts. So the answer to D is 2. So the question E is the highest price that the other country will pay for that good or pay for coconuts is blank tons of computers per boatload of coconuts. And so here we go, who's not going to be producing coconuts? Who's going to try to get a cheaper price? And country N says, look, we're willing to pay you up to 3. We'd prefer to pay you less, right? If we're going to get a coconut, we give up 3 computers. If we could somehow take a coconut and turn it into 2 computers, and it would only cost us 2 computers, that'd be better. So the answer to E is 3. Normally what happens is you look at the good and you look at who produces it, and the low price is set by the producer, in this case E, and the high price is set by the non-specialized company, which is going to be country N. Okay, so that's how to do that problem in a nutshell and answer those questions. It's really just a system of relative prices. It's not saying what is the actual price, it's saying what are some of the possible prices that people would be happy with. So next up, the same student had a question on, and we'll take these in order of ease as opposed to where they occur in the material, because I have a meeting I have to get to, and if I need to, I'll come back and do another one of these. But anyway, what we're going to come up next is what's the difference between M1 and M2? So first off, M1 and M2 are just types of money. So I think the confusion comes in really when you're doing the problem sets is that you think you know what it is, but you don't know what it is, because here's the way you're probably processing the information. You say M1, and I think some of the textbooks throw you off here. M1 is money. M1, so first off, money is not what you have in your pocket. There's different definitions of money in economics. And so we need to start from that basis that all currency isn't money, but currency or money in circulation is M1. If it's seen in a bank vault or in reserves, it's not M1 necessarily. It's also going to be checking accounts. And M1 is also going to include traveler's checks. Now, if you don't know what traveler's checks are, that's no fault of your own. The reality is economists really and the government really haven't rethought this whole section of what M1 and M2 are for a long time period. And traveler's checks are an outdated way of thinking, because theoretically, at least, M1 is most liquid, meaning it's the easiest to convert into other things. Well, if you know what traveler's checks are, you know that it's very difficult to get anyone to take them. And as we go out, M2 is less liquid, although still very liquid, just less liquid than M1. And there's other types of money that we won't cover in this class, and that, by the way, a lot of people aren't covering anymore in textbooks. In fact, the government doesn't, and the Federal Reserve don't even report all the types of money that historically have been used. So you're thinking about this way, and you're thinking that this is either M1 or, but here's the problem. It's not an either or, right? We need to cross that out, because what's in M2? M2 is M1. Okay, so if we want to think about it as a circle, then we have a circle where we say, look, half of it is money, a little thin sliver is traveler's checks, and the rest is checking. Then we have this bigger circle where all of this is in it, plus the things on the outside are only M2. And so what do we have there? We have savings accounts, time deposits or CDs. This also includes Christmas savings funds or holiday savings funds, vacation funds, anywhere where you don't have access to the money immediately. And savings accounts, even though some of you experience them indifferently, don't have access to money immediately any longer either. Well, technically they don't, but some of you have access to it because your bank chooses to pay a fine. We also have money market mutual funds. And if I'm forgetting one from the list, then feel free to beat me over the head in the office hours. But for whatever reason, I'm thinking this is all there is. M1, savings accounts, CDs, money market mutual funds. So then we can divide up this other section. We can say, oh, okay, from here to here is savings. From here to here, money market mutual funds. And the whole rest of it is going to be CDs. And my ratios are a little off, and then everything in the center is still just M1, which is composed of these things. Okay. So when we're looking at the difference between M1 and M2, and you're trying to do some of those problems in problem sets, the problem you're probably having a lot of times is you try to exclude things from M1, but the reality is if anything is in M2, then it's automatically in M1. So you should never have a situation where nothing is in M1, right? So if we say, okay, what is money in your savings account? Well, that's M2. What is money in your pocket, right? And we say, well, money in your pocket is in M1, but it's also in M2, right? So there's almost nothing, in fact, not almost nothing, there is nothing that is only in M1. Everything in M1 is automatically in M2. So if you're dragging and dropping boxes, right, and trying to fill it in, the confusion comes when you try to put things only in the M1 category. So it is pretty straightforward, but it is a little confusing if you've never done this type of analysis before. And it's a weird type of containered good, right? We don't have a lot of definitions where we do that outside of logic. If you've taken logic, you'll see stuff like that for logic or set theory and mathematics. But most of you haven't had either of those courses or any exposure. So the last thing that this student wanted was a distinction between real GDP and nominal GDP. So I'm going to put it simply, real GDP, and I use the superscript R to simplify, real GDP is nominal GDP adjusted for inflation. Okay. And I've got an email here that might say my meeting's canceled. No, but it is saying that I've got a lot longer than I thought I did. So meeting was moved from noon to 1, so we can actually finish out this whole topic on this video. That can help some of you guys out. So when we think about what it is, and hopefully this doesn't get too crowded on small board, but let's think about it this way. Let's start with a problem. So I'm going to erase this so I have as much space as possible. And we're going to start with a very simple economy, 2 goods over 2 years. And then you can expand it out to 3 goods, 4 goods, 8 goods, 20 goods. We're never going to do that, but you could. It's really just a huge matrix or linear algebra problem. So what's happening is we start with nominal GDP is money today, not adjusted for inflation. And so we say, what do we do? Well, let's start with this simple model and say that we have a country that produces, let's use Ricardo's model, bread and butter. And we're going to track this bread and butter over a 2-year period, right? And the bread and the butter are going to be over year 1 and year 2. And we're keeping it simple. All problems of this sort should say that base year equals year 1 or year 2. You can change the base year. It's just an algebraic issue. If it doesn't say what the base year is, you can normally presume that the base year is the first year, but is what it is. In the real world, when we're looking at GDP, so one thing to put aside is this is a theoretic model of what GDP looks like on a small scale, so that you can imagine what it looks like on a large scale without doing the programming to do it for every good and service in society. So we're producing a theoretically small economy that just sells 2 things over a 2-year period, so that you can learn the basics of how it's done. But in the real world, what we're really doing is this is all space and time, right? So this is actually a huge, huge time period that we're looking at for actual GDP. And so we say in year 1, we need to have some information. We need prices and we need quantities. If you've had microeconomics, what we're really doing is saying, what's the total revenue for the economy for these items? Okay, and we tend to think that this is the price of bread and the quantity of bread, the price of bread and the quantity of bread. So I'm just putting, or butter, sorry. So let's use BT for butter and B for bread. Okay. So in year 1, the price of bread is $1 and the quantity sold, we're going to make this simple, as $100. The price of bread in year 2 is $1.50 and the quantity sold, not a lot of population growth. Let's make it just, let's say it's 100 still because I'm lazy. The price of butter in year 1 is 2 and the quantity sold is 100. And the price of butter in year 2 is 3. And the quantity sold is, let's make this fun, 50. You're going to consume less. So this is our data sets. And we can actually characterize this as price of butter year 1, price of butter year 2, quantity of butter year 1, quantity of butter year 2. And by the way, I can do the exact same thing for this one as well. So we can have price of, I just said butter, but bread for all these, year 1, price of butter, year 2, quantity of butter, year 1, quantity of butter, year 2. So hopefully that's not too small. I don't know how good the screen resolution is. So when we do nominal GDP, what's nominal GDP? It's going to be prices today. And we're going to do it for year 1. And just a reminder, nominal just means prices today. And what's today? Year 1. Okay, so nominal GDP is equal to the price of butter in year 1 times the quantity of butter in year, or bread in year 1, plus the price of butter, I don't know why I keep saying butter for both, in year 1, times the quantity of butter in year 1. We sub in the numbers and we get 1 times 100, which is 100, 2 times 100, which is 200. So it's 100 plus 200 equals 300 if we sub in the numbers. And I guess let me do this the first time through. We say 1 times 100 plus 2 times 100 equals 300. So what's nominal GDP, or the prices today in year 2? Here we get the price of bread in year 2 times the quantity of bread in year 2 plus the price of butter in year 2 times the quantity of butter in year 2. That's going to be 1 times 100 plus 3 times 50. And that's going to be equal to 100 plus 150, so 250. Now we can express this and we can say, okay, what we can do now is do the percentage change. Percentage change is a simple formula, so we just say the percentage change, I use delta for change, in nominal GDP, year 1 to 2 is equal to the newest year's GDP, so GDP in year 2, minus the old GDP, or nominal GDP, year 1, divided by, so new minus old over old, which is the new nominal GDP in year 1. We plug in the numbers and we get 250 minus 300 over 300, and we end up with it being equal to negative 50 over 300, which is negative 3/5, or 60.6. Is that right? Negative 1/6, so 6 goes in 1. So it's equal to negative 5 over 3, or 5 over 30, which equal to negative 1/6, which is equal to, what's 1 over 6? Make my life easy here. Thank God for calculators. I don't feel like doing that in my head today. Should know that one though. Oh, so it ends up being 16.7, approximately 16.7% when we convert it to a percentage. So we take all of this, multiply times 100 to convert it to a percentage. So I'm going to give myself space and erase this and just put the change is going to be 16.7. Okay, 16.7%. So this is all for nominal. Now we want to adjust for inflation, so we're going to do real. Real just means adjust for inflation, or another way of thinking about it to make it easier to memorize, constant price. What we're going to do is hold prices constant at some base here, year 1, and we're going to adjust the quantities and see what the change in quantity is. By the way, that was a negative 16.7%. So real GDP, year 1, is equal to nominal GDP in year 1. And the reason being is because what we do is we hold the year 1 prices constant, so we still have price of bread year 1 times quantity bread year 1, price of butter year 1, quantity butter year 1. If you really need me to expand this out, let me know. I can show it to you, but this should be all over the web. It's easy to find. So that's going to be equal to 300. Then we want real GDP in year 2. So now we're looking for the quantity change, not the price. So we're going to hold the prices constant at year 1 prices. So we do price of bread year 1 times quantity of bread year 2 plus price of butter year 1 times quantity of butter year 2. And what's that equal to? That's equal to 1 times 100 plus 2 times 50. And that equals 100 plus 100, which is 200. And now we can do the percentage change, and you can use that same formula I did before. And remember, you hold the price constant right here. We don't let it change. And this is going to be equal to negative. We went from 300 to 200, so let's think about that. 2 minus 300, 100 over 200, so negative 50%. Is that right? Let's see. Let's just do the formula. 300 minus 200 over 200. Or, whoop, let's do it the proper way. New minus old over old times 100. And this is going to be negative 100 over 300, which equals, or multiply times 100, which equals negative 33%. So what we can see is the impact is a lot bigger in real GDP than in nominal GDP because the prices went up and muted the loss, the decimation of the amount of quantities that were purchased in the marketplace. So there's one final thing that we can produce, and I'm not even sure this is necessarily in your books, but this is what's called a constant weight price index. And instead of holding prices constant, we hold constant quantity. Okay, that's what that stands for. Let's angle this down a little more so you guys can see. And we do constant weight price index. We hold it constant at year one, and what we find out is year one is equal to real GDP in year one equal to nominal GDP in year one, which equal to 300. For year two, it's equal to price bread in year two times quantity bread year one. Hold that constant, the quantities this time, plus price butter year two. Now we're seeing the quantity change, the price changes, not the quantity change, times quantity butter year one. What's that equal to? This is going to be, let's go back up here, 1 times 100 oh wait, we need the price of bread year two, so correct this, 1.5, 150 times 100 plus, and no one could have corrected me because I'm a moron. This is actually 1.5 times 100, so go back and change the results and tell me what you got. I'll give anyone who's watching this extra credit to tell me what actual nominal GDP was in year one, and then what the real percentage change is. Send me that email. I'll give you guys extra credit since I made a mistake and found it before I was done with presentation. Actually, anytime I make a mistake and you guys find it, just send it to me and I'll give you a little bit of extra credit on an exam, because if you can spot my errors or fix them for me, that'd be awesome. So I made a mistake. It was $1.50 that year, right? We're using the current prices. So anyway, you guys solve that, solve percentage change. Nothing would have changed here because we don't ever use year two prices. But here we use year two prices, 150 times 100 plus 3 times 100. We're using that first year rudder price. That's going to be equal to 150 plus 300, which is 450. Okay, so now we can do the percentage change in our constant weight price index from year one to year two, and that's going to be equal to new minus old over old times 100, and that's 150 over 300 equal times 100, means that our percentage change is 50% right? If I did that correctly. That's pretty huge. So what we're saying is prices went up by 50%, and that makes sense. Here prices went up by 50%, here they went up by 50%, so the prices went up by 50%. So real GDP fell while prices went up by 50%, means that if you're living in this economy, is this a crappy economy or an awesome economy? Send me that in an email as well for more extra credit. So anyway, that's a bunch of data. Hopefully that helps clarify how to calculate real and nominal GDP and what they are. I think the PowerPoints and the videos online do a good job of explaining what real and nominal GDP are in terms of measuring them in the real world, but maybe not the theoretic side. And normally it's an accounting issue for a lot of students to figure out where to account for different things and put them in the right place. So anyway, hope you guys had a good time. Sorry for technical difficulties. Next time, hopefully we won't have them. But next time I'll do what I did this time and try it quicker, which is to just create a new Hangout on Air. Talk to you guys later. Thanks a lot for the question. Bye.